My son had locked me in my own room, snatched my phone, and ignored my desperate pleas to call for help, convinced this would speed up his claim to the inheritance. I am an aging, ailing father. He is a greedy heir who sees me only as an obstacle. But 3 days later, when he finally opened the door, what he witnessed made him scream. Before we dive in, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments what time it is where you are right now. The front door felt heavier than I remembered. 2 weeks in the hospital had weakened more than my heart. My hands shook as I turned the key. The familiar click, once comforting, now rang out like a warning. "Hello, kids. I'm finally home." Ethan didn't glance up from his laptop. My chair, the chair I had always sat in, seemed to own him now. "Yeah, I see that," I muttered under my breath, the greeting I'd imagined during endless nights of beeping monitors nowhere in sight. Celeste appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, her smile thin and forced, like hospital coffee. "Oscar, you look better," she said, though her pause spoke louder than the words. I set my suitcase and discharge papers down, taking in the room I had called mine for 37 years. The family photos on the mantel were gone. The bookshelf held new books, arranged by color, not sentiment. Even the lamp Sarah had found at that garage sale, gone. "Where are my things?" I asked. "We were just tidying up," Celeste replied, her voice smooth, practiced. "It was getting cluttered." Cluttered. The word tasted bitter. Those were my memories, my life. Ethan finally looked up. "Dad, we need to discuss the future of this house." "The future?" As if I had no part in it, as if my surgery had been a funeral rather than a second chance. I moved toward the garage, my surgical scar pulling tight against the bandages. The familiar ache in my chest wasn't from the operation. It was from seeing my life packed into cardboard boxes, tools I'd used for 40 years, photo albums, Sarah's recipe cards neatly labeled in Celeste's handwriting, my possessions, packed away as if I were already gone. Ethan appeared in the doorway. "We thought you might be more comfortable in a different arrangement." "Arrangement?" My voice cracked like aged leather. "This is my house, son. Actually, Dad, we've been thinking." He crossed his arms, a stranger in my son's body. "You're not getting any younger. The stairs are dangerous for someone in your condition." The condition he had never asked about during my hospital stay. Not once. Not a visit, not a call. "The doctor cleared me for normal activity." "The doctor doesn't live here," Ethan snapped, sharp and final, like a door slamming. "We do. Not you, not me, not Celeste, just we, the couple who had taken over while I fought to survive." Evening shadows stretched across the garage like long fingers, turning the house I'd built into a tomb. My son stood there, cold and unrecognizing, eyes empty of the man who had taught him to ride a bike, change oil, and act decently. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, each step a quiet victory over the pain in my chest. Behind me, I heard muted voices, Ethan and Celeste, talking softly, probably plotting a future that didn't include their inconvenient old man. At least the bedroom was the same, the familiar bed, the view of Hal Jenkins waving from his porch each morning, some family photos remaining on the nightstand. I sank onto the mattress, discharge papers crinkling in my lap. Tomorrow had to be better. Tonight was only the shock of returning, the awkwardness of readjustment. Families needed time to heal, just like hearts. But listening to the domestic sounds below, the clink of dishes, the soft hum of the television, the comfort of people who belonged, I felt lonelier than I had in the sterile hospital room. The house settled around me with its familiar creaks. Ethan's footsteps crossed the kitchen, then the stairs, passing my door without pause. No. Good night. No check to see if I needed anything. Just the soft click of their door sealing me out. I lay in darkness, one hand pressed to my chest, where the surgeon had cracked me open and stitched me back together. The body was healing, but something else was broken, and I wasn't sure it could be fixed. Morning came, but it felt wrong. My chest felt crushed, my mouth dry as sandpaper. The digital clock read 7:30 a.m., but the light through the blinds was harsh, blinding. Sitting up made the room tilt sideways. This wasn't normal soreness, it was the sharp, insistent pain Dr. Simmons had warned me about. If you experience chest pressure, shortness of breath, or sudden dizziness, don't wait. Call an ambulance immediately. I reached for the water on my nightstand, but my arm felt like concrete. Lifting my head sent waves of nausea crashing through me. I needed the phone, but it sat across the room, miles away. My legs buckled as I tried to rise, catching myself against the mattress, the surgical scar pulling tight like a chain. A sharp reminder of how recently my chest had been cut open, how delicate the healing really was. The doctor's warning echoed in my mind, if it gets worse. Ambulance, I whispered to the empty room, trying to recall the exact phrases, the precise signs that meant danger. This counts. This definitely counts. Ethan, I croaked, my voice barely audible. I tried again, louder this time. Ethan! Ethan! Help me! Silence. Only the distant hum of the coffee machine, the soft murmur of the morning news from the kitchen TV. Ordinary sounds of an ordinary morning, for hearts that weren't trying to betray their owners. I made it halfway to the dresser before my vision blurred at the edges. The pain in my chest flared, shooting down my left arm like wildfire. I gripped the door frame, gasping for air. Ethan! Everything I had went into that shout, tearing from my throat as footsteps shuffled slowly below. Then his voice drifted up from what sounded like the bottom of the stairs. What is it, Dad? What is it? As if I were calling about a dripping faucet or a burned-out bulb. As if the desperation in my voice had vanished into the air unnoticed. I feel terrible. Really terrible. Call an ambulance. Another pause. Longer this time. I sank to the floor, sliding against the wall, the phone still impossibly out of reach. My reflection in the dresser mirror showed a gray-faced old man, eyes wide and wild, pajamas soaked with sweat. Sarah would have been dialing 911 already. Sarah would have held my hand, talked me through it, reminded me I wasn't alone. But Sarah was gone. And I was stuck upstairs with a son who wouldn't climb 14 steps to check on his father in a medical crisis. The pain spread across my chest like acid. I remembered the surgeon's words, the heart's fragility, the delicate repairs, how quickly a man my age could go from recovery to catastrophe, the statistics delivered as if I were just a number in a ledger. Ethan, please, I gasped, my voice fading, strength seeping out with every labored breath. Movement. A chair scraping, footsteps deliberate, measured, almost casual. Relief surged even as the pain sharpened. He was coming. Finally, he was coming. The stairs groaned under his weight. Each step careful, slow, not the urgency of an emergency, just the pace of someone fulfilling an obligation. Still, he was coming. That was enough. I pulled myself up against the wall, trying to appear steadier than I felt. Weakness wasn't something I wanted to show, though that was exactly what this was. The fragile truth of a body that had already betrayed me once. Dad? His voice carried a note of mild concern, like asking after a neighbor's cat. In here. Hurry. The bedroom door opened. Ethan stepped in, still in pajamas, hair rumpled from sleep. He took in my sweat-soaked, slumped form, and remained calm. What's wrong? As if it wasn't obvious. As if a man calling for an ambulance could be dismissed so casually. Call, quickly. I feel terrible. He moved through the room like someone assessing a scene rather than responding to danger. His eyes flicked to the phone, then back to me, then the phone again. No, Dad. I won't call. The words hit me like ice water. What are you saying? I could die. He picked up the phone, slipped it into his pocket with a casual, practiced motion, as if this had been rehearsed. The room fell silent except for my ragged breaths. I stared at my son. The boy I'd taught to throw a baseball, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college I'd paid for, and saw a stranger wearing his face. Ethan, what? The pain in my chest deepened, But this wasn't just my heart. Something fundamental had broken, something no scalpel or stitch could repair. You're old, Dad. Sick. This house is worth $300,000, and Celeste and I have plans. Plans that didn't include me. Plans that treated me like an inconvenience. Invalid? The word cut deeper than any blade. I'm your father, I whispered. You're a burden. He moved toward the door at the same unhurried pace. Burdens have a way of resolving themselves, he said without words. I tried to reach him, to grab his shoulders and shake some humanity back into him, but my body betrayed me, legs failing, arms too weak to hold me up. I collapsed against the wall. Ethan, please. I need help. He paused, a flicker of something that might have been pity, if it had warmth at all, then turned away. No, Dad. Accept reality. The door closed. The lock clicked. Locked. He had locked me in. I pounded on the door with the last of my strength. Open the door. What are you doing? His footsteps receded down the hall, down the stairs, back to his coffee, his plans, his future, which didn't include me. I slumped against the door. Pain in my chest was now matched by a different kind of agony. The boy I had raised, the son I had loved unconditionally, had sentenced me to die, not with rage, not with violence, but with the cold calculation of someone swatting a fly. The walls seemed to close in. No phone, no escape. Below me, life went on, TV murmurs, the coffee maker's hiss, domestic normalcy built on my grave. I pressed my ear to the door, listening for any sign of conscience, any reconsideration. Instead, laughter, light, careless, satisfying, echoed up from Ethan and Celeste. My chest burned, the scar screaming. Machines, medications, careful monitoring, all wasted. I was alive, but trapped, abandoned by the people I had trusted most. Yet, I was not dead. And despite the pain, despite the betrayal, despite every warning my body screamed at me about giving up, something fierce and unyielding stirred in the part of me that had survived 68 years, 2 wars, the loss of my wife, and now this. If Ethan believed I would simply give in, quietly, on schedule, he didn't know his father as well as he thought. I had endured far worse. I had endured him. The window faced Hal's house. Hal Jenkins, my neighbor for 15 years, who waved every morning, who had just asked about my recovery last week. I needed his attention. I crawled toward the window, each inch a small victory against the pain threatening to drag me under. The glass was cold under my palm as I pressed up, peering down at the street below. Hal's newspaper still lay on the driveway. Soon he would come out, coffee mug in hand, ready to start another ordinary day in an ordinary neighborhood, where sons didn't trap their fathers to die. All I had to do was survive long enough to get him to notice. All I had to do was make Ethan's plan fail. The pain was real, dangerous, potentially lethal. But so was my son's betrayal. And between the two, I knew which one I would fight with everything I had. The silence after his footsteps faded felt like the weight of death. I pressed my back against the door, sliding down until I sat crumpled on the carpet like a forgotten garment. Sarah's carpet, her choice, from our 3rd year of marriage, bit into my palms. How had this happened? Where was the boy I raised? The question echoed inside my skull, ricocheting off memories that no longer made sense. This was the same boy who had cried when he accidentally crushed a spider at 7. The same boy who had hugged me so tightly after his first Little League home run that I thought my ribs would snap. My chest felt as if a vice were tightening around it. Every breath was a small victory against the fire racing down my left arm. Fragments of the doctor's words returned. Any sudden onset of symptoms, don't hesitate. Fatal. Fatal. That was what Ethan was counting on. My own son. Did he truly want me dead? The whisper barely left my lips. I remembered teaching him to ride in the driveway below this very window. He must have been 6, maybe 7, hair sticking up no matter how much Celeste tried to tame it, gap-toothed grin radiant with triumph. When he managed those first wobbly solo yards, he turned to me, eyes sparkling. "Did you see, Dad? Did you see me do it?" I had been so proud, impossibly proud, of that little boy with my stubborn chin and my wife's gentle eyes. That child was gone. In his place was a stranger wearing Ethan's face, a man who looked at his father and saw nothing but an obstacle to financial freedom, a burden to be removed. Perhaps I truly had become a burden. The thought crept in like poison, seeping through every corner of my mind. Had I been demanding? Difficult? When I had called from the hospital asking when they might visit, had my voice sounded needy enough to push people away? When I had admitted feeling lonely, had it come across as manipulation? The pain in my chest intensified, blurring the line between physical agony and emotional devastation. Together they merged into an unbearable weight pressing down on everything I thought I knew about love, family, and basic decency. Through the window, I heard the distant whir of a lawn mower. Life continuing in its ordinary rhythm, as if the world hadn't just cracked open to reveal rot at its core. I forced myself to focus on the rhythm of breathing, in, out, as the physical therapist had taught me after surgery, counting to keep panic from taking hold. But this wasn't rehabilitation. This was survival. The morning light streamed through the window, casting long rectangles across the floor. I could see Hal's house, his neat garden, the precise rows of vegetables. Hal, who had waved just last week, asking how I was feeling, offering to bring me anything from the store. Hal, who had no idea his neighbor was trapped upstairs, abandoned by his own blood. I pressed my palm to the floor and pushed, fighting dizziness as I struggled onto my knees. The window might have been 12 feet away, but it felt like 12 miles. Still, it was progress. Forward. The only direction left. Crawling toward the window felt like crossing a desert. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through my chest. But lying still would mean letting Ethan's plan succeed. My surgical scar pulled tight beneath the bandages as I inched across Sarah's carpet, using the furniture legs for support. The window latch was stuck, painted over years ago, and rarely touched. My hands trembled as I worked at the latch, sweat stinging my eyes from the effort. When it finally gave way with a rusty squeal, the morning air hit my face like a benediction. Hal's garden stretched out below, rows of tomatoes and peppers catching the sunlight, orderly and calm. He knelt among the plants, wearing his old Northwestern t-shirt and canvas gloves, completely absorbed in checking for pests. "Hal!" My voice came out as a hoarse croak. 2 weeks of intubation had left my throat raw, and panic made it worse. "Hal, help me!" He looked up, squinting against the sun. "Oscar? What's happened?" The relief of seeing a familiar face, of having another human acknowledge I existed, nearly overwhelmed me. "Call an ambulance! Now! I feel awful!" Hal dropped his trowel and sprang to his feet, brushing dirt from his knees. "What's wrong? Should I come up?" "No. I'm locked in. Can't reach my phone." The words tumbled out in a rush. I couldn't tell him about Ethan, couldn't shatter my family's reputation in the neighborhood, but I could get help. I could survive this. "Locked in? How are you locked in your own bedroom?" His voice carried disbelief, an edge of accusation. How could I explain that my own son had trapped me? That the boy Hal had watched grow up, the one he'd congratulated on his wedding day, had become capable of this? "The door jammed," I lied, hating myself for protecting Ethan even now. "Just please call. I think it's my heart again. I'm calling right now. Hang on." Hal was already moving toward his house, that brisk, efficient stride of a man trained to act first and worry later. 15 years in the classroom had taught him to respond immediately to emergencies. I gripped the window frame, leaning as far out as my weak body would allow. The morning air filled my lungs, sweet and clean compared to the stale confinement of my room. Below, Hal vanished into his house, reappearing at the kitchen window with a phone pressed to his ear, gesturing to the dispatcher. Help was coming. After an hour of isolation, facing the terrifying possibility of dying alone, actual help was finally on its way. Relief washed over me, but then a new dread crept in. What would happen when the paramedics arrived? Would Ethan let them in? Would he keep up the charade that I was fine, just a confused old man? He was smooth, practiced, the sort of person authorities trusted instinctively. "They're on their way," Hal called from his back door. "Ambulance should be here in 10 minutes. Just hang tight." 10 minutes. I could make it 10 minutes. Through the window, I watched Hal hurry back to his garden, then pause and move to the front yard, keeping watch for the ambulance. Seeing him stand there, this near stranger caring more about me than my own son, brought tears to my eyes. The ache in my chest eased slightly, replaced by adrenaline, the body's way of keeping me alive long enough to see rescue arrive. But then I heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate steps climbing the stairs toward my room. Ethan had heard me. He knew. The footsteps stopped outside the door. I could see him there in my mind, calculating, a predator assessing a failing plan. How angry would he be? How far would he go? The lock clicked. The door slammed inward with a violent force, hitting the wall. Ethan filled the frame, face twisted with a fury I had never seen, even in his worst teenage tantrums. His professional veneer was gone, replaced by something raw and dangerous. "What did you do, you old fool?" I scrambled backward from the window, heart hammering. "Let me go! I need help!" He crossed the room in 3 long strides, grabbing my shoulders and yanking me up with startling strength. Up close, I could see the panic behind the rage, the frantic calculation of a man whose careful plans were crumbling. "Listen carefully," he said, grip tightening, fingers digging into the surgical site until I gasped. "If you tell anyone about this, I'll make your life hell. You're insane, you're my son! I'm your son who's waited long enough for his inheritance." His words burst out like a dam breaking. "Do you know what it's like watching you cling to life while Celeste and I scrape by? Living in this house like charity cases." He shoved me back onto the bed with enough force to jar my teeth. Pain shot through my chest as my surgical site twisted. Above me, Ethan loomed. A stranger in my child's face. Charity cases? I struggled to draw in air. "This is your house. I never asked for rent. Not once. Because you wanted us dependent. Trapped." His voice rose toward hysteria. "Well, guess what, Dad? I found a way out. We found a way out." The emphasis on "we" hit me like a blow to the chest. Celeste wasn't just involved, she was an accomplice. The woman who had called me Papa at their wedding, who had sent me birthday cards, had been counting down the days until my death. "How long?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "How long have you been planning this?" Ethan's laugh was devoid of humor. "Since the first heart attack. When the doctor said you might not make it." His words dripped with cold triumph. All I could think about was finally being free of the weight around my neck. He moved to the window, eyes darting to Hal's property below with the tense intensity of a trapped animal. "Who did you call? What did you tell them?" "I told them I was dying. Because I am." "No!" He spun toward me, finger jabbing. "You lied to them. Made yourself look like a victim, when you're just a stubborn old man who refuses to see reality. The reality that your son wants you dead. The reality that you're 70, with a failing heart, and no business holding back progress." His professional facade was gone, replaced by the predator beneath. "That house is worth $300,000. $300,000? I echoed, my stomach sinking. "Do you know what Celeste and I could do with that money?" The casual way he discussed my death, as if it were a business transaction, made my skin crawl. This wasn't a lapse, a moment of weakness. This was his true self, a man who viewed his father as nothing but an obstacle to wealth. "I could change my will," I said quietly. "Leave everything to charity." His face drained of color, then flushed red. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." For a heartbeat, I thought he might strike me. Fists clenched, muscles taut, battling some internal war between rage and calculation. Then a sound drifted through the window, slicing through the tension. Sirens. Ethan's head snapped toward the noise, panic flickering across his features. How long ago did you call? I didn't call anyone. Technically true. Hal had seen me in distress. You lying? His words cut off as the sirens grew louder, approaching fast. His mind pivoted, calculating options with the cold precision he applied to his work. Here's what's going to happen, he said in a low, lethal whisper. You'll tell them you had a panic attack. That you got confused, thought the door was locked when it wasn't. You'll apologize for wasting their time. And if you don't, his smile was devoid of warmth, then your remaining years will be miserable. I control your medications, your meals, your access to the world outside. Cross me, and I'll make sure you know exactly how powerless you are. The sirens were almost upon us now, red and blue lights flickering in the distance. Through the window, I saw Hal at the end of his driveway, waving them toward our house. Ethan adjusted his shirt, ran a hand through his hair, restoring his polished mask. Remember what I said, Dad? Every word, I muttered. He moved toward the door, pausing. Oh, and the door was never locked. You just forgot how to open it. Old age, you know, confusing for everyone. The wail of sirens cut through the morning air, a knife through silence. I watched the ambulance turn onto our street, lights flashing across the lawns. Relief surged so sharply my knees nearly gave way. But then I saw Ethan descend the front steps, movements precise and deliberate. Hair smoothed, shirt straightened, professional mask in place, the concerned son, ready to manage an unfortunate misunderstanding. The ambulance stopped in front of our house with a hydraulic hiss. 2 paramedics leapt out, a woman in her 40s with streaks of gray in her hair and a younger man carrying equipment. They moved with the practiced efficiency of people accustomed to life-or-death situations. Ethan intercepted them before they could reach the door. Officers, I think there's been some mistake, he said, perfectly measured, polite confusion lacing his tone. Everyone here is healthy. We received a call from this address. Cardiac emergency. Possible distress. The female paramedic replied, eyes scanning the property carefully. Well, my father has been a bit confused since surgery, Ethan added, flawless in his act. The devoted son, managing an aging parent prone to imagined emergencies. My chest burned with fury, threatening to eclipse the pain in my chest. Even now, even in the middle of his lies, he was trying to cast me as a confused old man. I'm here! I shouted from the window, forcing every ounce of strength into my voice. Second! Help me! The paramedics looked up immediately, trained eyes locking on my obvious distress. The woman craned her neck. Sir, are you experiencing chest pain? Yes. And I'm locked in my room. Can't get out. Ethan's mask faltered, a flicker of panic crossing his face before he quickly regained composure. He gets confused about the door handle sometimes, he said. Old age, you know. I'll just go up and... No! The male paramedic's voice cut through Ethan's rehearsed explanation like a razor. Sir, open the door immediately. We need direct access to the patient. His tone left no room for negotiation. This wasn't a polite request anymore. We have a patient reporting cardiac distress and claiming to be trapped. You will provide immediate access, or we will call law enforcement. I watched Ethan's face shift through a dozen expressions: calculation, desperation, anger, resignation. His lies had cornered him, trapped between his meticulously constructed deception and the unyielding rules of emergency protocol. Of course, he said finally, his voice tight, controlled. I'll unlock the door immediately. But he didn't move. He froze, counting precious seconds, searching frantically for any way to regain control. The paramedics recognized the hesitation. Sir, unlock the door now, or we will consider this a potential elder abuse case and notify the police, the woman said, her hand brushing toward her radio. Elder abuse. The word struck like a whip, and I saw Ethan flinch as if physically struck. His shield of plausible deniability was crumbling before our eyes. "Right away," he muttered, but his feet stayed rooted to the lawn. The male paramedic's patience snapped. He spoke into his radio with crisp efficiency. "Dispatch, we need police backup at this location. Possible elder abuse. Family member preventing access to patient." That broke Ethan's paralysis. No, that's not necessary." He practically sprinted toward the front door, keys jingling in his hand. "I'll open it right now." I watched him vanish inside through the window, and moments later, his footsteps creaked up the stairs, slower than they should have been, each one a reluctant surrender. The lock clicked. The door swung open. "Dad?" His voice forced concern, a performance designed for any witnesses. "The paramedics are here to check on you." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The professional rhythm of boots on stairs, of equipment carried to save my life, said everything. When the female paramedic finally appeared at my doorway, her experienced eyes assessed everything instantly: my distress, the odd circumstances, the locked door that had supposedly confused me. "Hello, Oscar," she said softly. "I'm Sarah Chin, and this is my partner, Mike Rodriguez. We're here to help." "Sarah, same name as my wife?" I muttered. "I'll take that as a good omen." The hospital blurred around me, a river of bright lights and urgent voices, an oxygen mask pressed to my face, and 4 needle finding my vein with professional precision, monitors beeping in sync with my failing heart. Through it all, one thought prowled relentlessly: my own son had tried to kill me. Dr. Laura Simmons appeared the following day, once my condition had stabilized enough for conversation. Younger than I'd anticipated, perhaps in her mid-50s, with a direct gaze that suggested she'd seen everything and been fooled by nothing. "Oscar, your condition was critical when you arrived," she said, settling into the chair beside my bed. "A little longer without treatment, and we might be having a very different conversation." "Thank you for saving me," I said automatically, yet each word carried unexpected weight. Someone had intervened to preserve my life when my own family had plotted to end it. Dr. Simmons nodded, though her expression remained guarded. "The paramedics mentioned unusual circumstances: locked door, a family member preventing access." I met her gaze steadily. "My son and I had a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. As if attempted murder could be reduced to a domestic dispute. I wasn't ready to destroy the last remnants of my family's reputation. Not yet, not until I had a plan. "I see." She made a note in my chart, but I caught the skeptical glance she threw me. "We'll keep you for observation. The strain on your cardiovascular system was severe. We want to ensure there are no complications." 2 days. 2 days in that hospital bed, staring at ceiling tiles, processing the total collapse of my perception of my son. 2 days to replay every conversation, every moment, hunting for signs I had missed. 2 days to understand that Ethan hadn't snapped. He had been planning my death for months, perhaps years. The nurses checked on me frequently, their kindness a stark contrast to the coldness at home. "When can we expect visitors?" Jennifer, the evening nurse, asked during her rounds. "No," I said firmly. "And there won't be any." She raised her eyebrows. "No family?" "None that matter." The phone by my bed remained silent. Not a single call from Ethan inquiring about my condition. No flowers from Celeste, no messages of concern. Only the steady hum of medical monitors and my own thoughts spiraling darker with every hour. Ethan would answer for what he had done. That realization crystallized on my second sleepless night. Rage had cooled into something sharper, more deliberate. This was no longer about family, it was about justice. About making sure no other vulnerable parent would fall victim the way I had. I understood now how Ethan had valued me, not as a father, not as a person, but as a dollar figure. $300,000. The worth of my life to him. The value of my home, minus the cost of my continued existence. But he had made one fatal error. He had left me alive. By the morning of June 13th, I had a plan. Not the impulsive fury of a wronged father, but the careful, strategic calculation of a man who had spent 68 years learning how the world really functioned. Ethan was clever, but he was also arrogant. He assumed he was dealing with a confused old man, one who would either die quietly or be too embarrassed to reveal family secrets. He was wrong on both counts. "You're looking much better," Dr. Simmons said during her final check. "Heart rhythm is stable. Blood pressure is under control. I think we can discharge you this afternoon." "Good. I have things to handle at home," I said. She hesitated, pen hovering over the discharge papers. "Oscar, if there are ongoing issues at home, there are resources. Social services, elder advocacy groups." I smiled, but it wasn't warm. "I can manage my family situation, doctor." "Thank you." At 2 p.m. I left Northwest Community Hospital with a small bag of medications and a heart beating strong and steady. The taxi driver tried to make conversation, asking about my stay, commenting on the pleasant weather. I barely registered his words. My mind was entirely focused on the afternoon ahead, the phone calls I had to make, the preparations ensuring Ethan would face the consequences of his actions. The house looked exactly as I had left it 3 days earlier, but everything had changed. This was no longer home. It was a crime scene, and I was no longer the victim. I was the prosecutor. The taxi pulled away with a soft hum, leaving me on the sidewalk outside the house that no longer felt familiar. Ethan's car was gone, at work, probably, playing the part of the dutiful son after another medical emergency. Celeste's sedan was absent as well, likely at her marketing job, maintaining the appearance of normalcy. Perfect. I needed privacy for what came next. Inside, the house felt transformed. Same furniture, same family photos, perhaps guilt returned them to their places, or maybe just habit, but the atmosphere had shifted irreversibly. This was no sanctuary. It was evidence. I ascended the stairs slowly, conserving energy, and went straight to my bedroom. The window was still open from my desperate cries for help. The carpet bore the imprint of where I had collapsed, struggling for breath while my own son schemed my death. From my dresser, I retrieved a small digital recorder, a device I had bought years ago to preserve Sarah's childhood stories for grandchildren who would never exist. Now it would serve a different purpose. The device was simple, a silver rectangle no larger than a playing card. I tested it twice, speaking clearly into the microphone, confirming the playback was crisp and clean. Technology had improved since my working days. Next, I assembled documentation. Medical records from my recent hospitalization, discharge papers proving the severity of my cardiac emergency, Dr. Simmons' notes highlighting the unusual circumstances surrounding my treatment. But the critical step came at 3:30 p.m. I dialed Arlington Heights Police Department. "How can I help you?" the operator asked. "My name is Oscar Reynolds. I need to report an elder abuse case." The operator's tone sharpened instantly. "What kind of abuse, sir?" "Attempted murder. False imprisonment. My son locked me in my room during a medical emergency and refused to call for help." I spoke steadily, clearly, without emotion, the voice of credibility. "Sir, when did this occur?" 3 days ago, June 11th. I have medical documentation and witness statements." "And where are you now, Mr. Reynolds?" "At home. The perpetrator lives under the same roof as me." I paused, calculating my timing. "If officers could arrive around 7:30 tonight, I'll have additional evidence ready for you." "Additional evidence?" the operator asked, curious. "A recorded confession, if everything goes as planned." There was a brief silence. "Mr. Reynolds, are you in immediate danger?" "Not immediately. But if you arrive at 7:30, you'll witness a crime in progress and have everything you need to press charges." I hung up before she could ask more. Too many details would make it sound staged. Suspicious. Better to let the truth reveal itself naturally. The recorder slipped easily into my shirt pocket, microphone aimed to catch every word. I tested the angles multiple times, recording myself from different positions, replaying each attempt until the sound was flawless. At 6 o'clock, Ethan's car rolled into the driveway. Showtime. I settled into the living room chair, my chair, the one he had claimed during my hospital stay, and waited. The front door creaked open. "Dad?" His voice carried surprise. "You're home? Where else would I be?" I answered. He appeared in the doorway, still in his business attire, face carefully composed and mild concern. "The performance was flawless if you didn't know what to look for. How are you feeling? The hospital said you're stable, but stable enough for some interesting conversations." I kept my tone calm, almost casual, speaking of patience, of sons who wait for fathers to die, of inheritance. His mask faltered for a fraction of a second, a tightening around his eyes, a pause just a heartbeat too long. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." I smiled, and I saw him recognize something in my expression, something new, born from betrayal. "We both know exactly what you did. The question is whether you're man enough to admit it." Through the window, I spotted a police car turning onto our street, moving with deliberate, professional timing. Ethan followed my gaze and froze. "What did you do?" he whispered. I clicked the recorder off inside my pocket. "Justice, son. Something you forgot to teach yourself." At 6:30, Ethan's sedan rumbled into the driveway. Moments later, Celeste's car arrived, engine ticking as it cooled. Car doors slammed, casual and unaware, as though returning to their domain while the rules had quietly shifted. The front door creaked open again, the same sound that had welcomed me home from work for 37 years, back when this house had been love, not lies. "Dad?" Ethan's voice carried that polished note of concern he had perfected over the past few days. "You're home already?" I remained seated in my chair, hands folded calmly in my lap. The recorder in my pocket pressed warm against my chest, red light hidden but capturing every word. "This is my house, son." He appeared in the doorway, suit crisp, mask of professionalism intact. Yet I could see the tension in his shoulders, the darting of his eyes scanning the room for threats. "What were you thinking, leaving the hospital so soon? The doctors cleared me." I kept my voice calm, conversational. "Clean bill of health. Amazing what surviving attempted murder does for a man's constitution." His face flushed white, then red. "That's not what happened, and you know it." "Do I?" I smiled, feeling the power shift that had been building for 3 days finally take hold. "Refresh my memory, Ethan. What exactly happened when you locked me in my room and refused to call for help while I was dying? You got confused. The door wasn't locked. You just couldn't. $300,000. The number landed in the silence like a stone in still water. "That's what my house was worth to you. That's what you and Celeste have been planning to take." Celeste appeared in the hallway, grocery bags in hand. She glanced, saw what was unfolding, and disappeared toward the kitchen. Smart woman, too smart to be caught in the crossfire when her husband's world crumbled. "You don't know what you're talking about," Ethan said, voice losing its polish, raw desperation creeping through. "I know exactly what I'm talking about." I leaned forward, watching him flinch. "I know you've been waiting for me to die. I know you see me as nothing but an obstacle to your financial freedom. I know you'd kill to get what you want." "Shut up." His words were low, dangerous. "Just shut up, old man." "Perfect." The recorder caught every syllable. "Or what?" I pressed. "You'd lock me up again. Finish what you started. I should have let you die." And then it came, the explosion I'd been waiting for, raw, honest, completely incriminating. "Do you have any idea what it's like, watching you cling to life while we're stuck here like prisoners? Waiting for you to finally do us all a favor and die." A cold satisfaction settled into my chest. The recorder captured every word of his confession, every slip that would seal his fate. "But you didn't let me die," I murmured. "Because you're a coward, Ethan. You wanted me gone, but lacked the nerve to do it yourself. You just hoped nature would finish the job while you played the innocent son." Innocent? He barked, a harsh laugh with no humor. I've been innocent all my life. Perfect son, model student, responsible adult. And what did that earn me? Trapped in my father's house at 42, living off your charity, scraping for leftovers. So you decided to take the whole feast. I'm just reclaiming what should have been mine years ago. The polished mask was gone, replaced by raw ugliness. You had your time, Dad. Your house, your life, your choices. Now it's my turn. Movement flickered across the street outside the window. Right on schedule. Your turn. I rose slowly, steady, unshaken despite all he'd put me through. Let me tell you whose turn it really is, son. The doorbell rang. Ethan spun toward the sound, confusion replacing anger. Who could that be? I slipped the recorder off, its job done. Justice, Ethan. Something you clearly forgot about. The bell rang again, followed by 3 firm knocks that carried the unmistakable weight of law. Panic replaced his confusion in an instant. What did you do? He whispered. I walked to the door, calm and deliberate, heart steady. Through the peephole, I saw 2 officers in Arlington Heights uniforms, a woman in her 40s with sergeant stripes, and a younger man with sharp, serious eyes. Oscar Reynolds? The female officer asked when I opened the door. Yes. I'm Sergeant Maria Gonzalez, and this is Officer Derek Patel. We received your report about elder abuse. Yes, I called, I said, stepping aside. I have evidence. Behind me, I heard Ethan's sharp intake of breath, the sound of a man realizing he had walked straight into a trap. Evidence? Ethan stammered, voice cracking. Sergeant Gonzalez's eyes scanned the scene, a tidy living room, a son who looked like he'd seen a ghost, an elderly man radiating calm authority. I reached into my shirt pocket and produced the small silver recorder. Recorded confession. Threats. Admission of attempted murder by medical neglect. That's... Ethan started, but stopped as Officer Patel's hand moved to his belt. Let's hear it, Gonzalez said. I pressed play. Ethan's voice echoed through the room, clear and damning. I should have let you die. Do you know what it's like watching you cling to life while we're trapped here like prisoners? The color drained from his face. That's taken out of context. I was provoking him. Keep listening, I said quietly. I decided to take what should have been mine years ago. You had your time, Dad. It's my turn now. Sergeant Gonzalez exchanged a look with her partner. 20 years on the force had taught her to recognize true evidence. Sir, can you tell us what happened on June 11th? Officer Patel asked, notebook ready. My son locked me in my bedroom during a cardiac emergency and refused to call for help, I said, steady, factual. He admitted he wanted me dead to inherit my house. Paramedics found me trapped, in severe distress. He's lying. Ethan's voice cracked. He's an old man confused about what really happened. We have the paramedic report, Gonzalez said, consulting her notes. Emergency responders documented a locked door and a family member attempting to block access, matching Mr. Reynolds' statement. From the kitchen doorway, Celeste appeared, suitcase in hand. She'd been listening, and she'd made her choice. Officers, I can confirm my husband's behavior, she said, voice shaking. I tried to stop him, but he insisted it would be better if Oscar just died naturally. Ethan spun to her, betrayal written all over his face. Celeste, what are you doing? What I should have done 3 days ago. She glanced at me, remorse faint but present. I'm sorry, Oscar. I should have protected you. Officer Patel stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Ethan Reynolds, you are under arrest for elder abuse, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to harm a vulnerable adult. You have the right to remain silent. Sergeant Gonzalez read. Anything you say can be used against you in court. I watched my son, the boy I had raised, loved, and provided for, being read his rights in the living room where he'd once unwrapped Christmas presents and celebrated birthdays. The weight should have crushed me, but instead, a long-forgotten peace settled over me. This isn't over. Ethan shouted as they led him away. "I'm your son, your only family." "No," I said softly but clearly. "My son would never try to kill me for money. I don't know who you are." The door closed with a soft click, taking the last remnants of the family I thought I knew. Celeste stood in the hallway, tears streaming, suitcase in hand. "I'll be gone by tomorrow. Divorce papers by week's end." I nodded. "That's best." She paused. "He wasn't always like this, the greed, it consumed him." "I know," I said quietly. I remembered the boy who had hugged me after every Little League game, who had once been innocent and full of trust. But that boy was gone, replaced by someone I could neither save nor forgive. The house was silent. Not the terrifying silence of abandonment, but the calm, blessed quiet of truth and justice. For the first time in months, I was truly alone, and it felt like freedom. 17 days later, I stood at the same window where I had once called for help. But now, I looked outward toward a future I had chosen for myself. The "for sale" sign in my front yard caught the morning sun, a small emblem of the new life I was building from the ruins of the old. The legal proceedings had unfolded faster than I expected. Ethan's plea bargain resulted in 2 years of probation, community service, and a permanent restraining order preventing him from contacting me. The elder abuse conviction would shadow him for the rest of his days, a fitting penalty for someone who had forgotten that family exists to protect, not prey upon. "Justice has been done," I murmured to the empty house. The words resonated deep within me. My phone rang, breaking the calm. The lawyer's voice was crisp and professional. "Oscar, the new will is finalized. Your son is no longer an heir. The proceeds from the house sale will cover your new living arrangements, and a generous donation to the Elder Abuse Prevention Society." "Thank you, Margaret. This feels right." I walked through the rooms that had seen both love and betrayal. The house would sell quickly, 3 bedrooms, a recently updated kitchen, and no family drama to complicate the sale. The realtor had commented on how clean and orderly everything looked. Over the past 2 weeks, I had carefully removed all traces of Ethan and Celeste. Their possessions were packed and ready for collection. I wouldn't discard their lives as they had tried to discard mine, but I would not cling to reminders of their treachery either. The assisted living community I had chosen was bright, modern, and full of people who understood that growing older didn't mean giving up. My deposit was paid, and the moving date set for next month. For the first time in years, I looked forward to the future. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Through the window, I saw Hal Jenkins holding a plate covered with foil. "How are things, Oscar?" he asked when I opened the door. "Better than ever, Hal." "Much better," he said, smiling warmly. "Sandra made too much pot roast again. Thought you might enjoy some." I accepted the plate with gratitude. In the weeks since Ethan's arrest, Hal had become a true friend, dropping by for coffee, helping with small repairs, treating me like family should have all along. "Want to come in?" I offered. "Can't stay long, but sure." He settled into the chair Ethan had once claimed as his own. "Read in the paper about your son's sentencing. Must be rough." "It was the right thing," I said simply. "Sometimes doing what's right means letting go of what we thought we wanted." We sat in companionable silence, 2 men who understood that true friendship is about being present, not talking. Through the window, children played in the street, their laughter floating on the summer breeze. "You know," Hal said eventually, "there's a poker game at the community center Thursday nights. A bunch of old-timers trying to remember how to bluff. Interested?" I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I'd like that very much." After he left, I walked through the house one last time, honoring the memories worth keeping and releasing those that only brought pain. In 6 weeks, someone else would call this place home, someone who would fill it with laughter instead of lies, love instead of resentment. The afternoon sun streamed through the living room, warming the space where I had fought for my life and won something more precious than survival. I had reclaimed my dignity, my autonomy, and my right to decide how my story would end. My phone buzzed with a message from the assisted living director, Your apartment is ready whenever you are. Welcome to your new chapter. I typed back. See you soon. Ready to begin. Outside, a cardinal perched on the windowsill, its bright red feathers vivid against the glass. Sarah had always said cardinals were messengers, signs that loved ones were watching over us. True or not, I took it as a good omen. At 68, I was starting over, not out of necessity, but because I had learned it's never too late to demand better from life, to refuse cruelty disguised as family, to fight for justice even when it costs everything you thought you wanted. The house was finally peaceful, free from betrayal, blessed with the knowledge that truth had triumphed, courage had defeated cowardice, and an old man could still be strong enough to save himself. Tomorrow would bring challenges, possibilities, and new reasons to choose hope over bitterness. But today, in this moment, I was exactly where I belonged, free, vindicated, and ready for whatever came next. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.